Hey there, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. I have been having a very stressful day in my little corner of the world. I don't know if any of you were affected by the Google outage, but I sure was because I use Gmail and Drive and many other services that Google provides, and I use it for work. And it was very stressful to navigate today with a very slow system. And I didn't know that there was a Google outage. I just thought that my software was outdated, but apparently it had to do with the outage, the global outage that occurred. And my computer is also very old, so that's also a possibility that contributed to the misery of having to wait for apps to load on Google. But anyway, that is not the point of this video. The reason why I'm talking about the Google outage is because it got me thinking about how we've become so dependent on these softwares. And the only reason why I realized there was a Google outage was because my friend who works in Google, I'm going to go see him later today, he texted me and he was like, oh, it's been a crazy day. There was a Google outage. And I was like, oh, go figure. That's why my Gmail and Drive and everything, all the apps weren't working and they were so slow. And he was like, yeah. But anyway, I've just been thinking this whole situation, even though it's not really a big deal, right? It just got me thinking about how dependent we've become on these programs, on these apps, and how our lives and our livelihoods depend on these programs and our lives aren't dependent of these programs, but they make our lives very easy, and a lot of systems are transferring to, Google and things like that. But anyway, I think there was an AI shutdown a couple of days ago too. I was reading that on the news, and I thought it was funny because people had to actually use their brains to think. And so this AI, Google outage, all of that just got me thinking about how we've stopped thinking for ourselves, and we've stopped exercising our brains. ChatGPT, although it's an amazing invention, it can also become a crutch for people that use it to replace their critical thinking skills. And I think that's the beauty of the human mind, being able to develop your critical thinking skills through the situations that you have to confront in your life, through the different scenarios that you have to think critically through and decide what you want to do, or see the nuance behind a situation or some dilemma that you're dealing with, right? But many people are becoming very dependent on these programs and losing their skills. And I don't think AI right now is at a place where it can replace the human mind, because it's still highly dependent on the internet, like the actual internet, and what people input in ChatGPT. ChatGPT doesn't think for itself, and it doesn't It can't do anything without the internet and without people inputting information in it. So it can't think for itself like humans can, right? But I do think that if we start using it as an extra appendage, it will become something that atrophies another part of the human experience. I believe that social media, although there are many good things that social media has brought with it, right? Just like YouTube, there are many YouTube videos on this app that have taught people things. They have helped people think more critically, or there are videos to help you think through a concept, a math concept or something, but there are also videos that are what I would call trash and that don't really make people better. It just is trying to make the person who's on that channel richer. They're selling you stuff, advertising stuff. I just think that's disgusting. And there are other channels out there that promote very dangerous ideas. And by dangerous, I mean ideas that promote division. And in my opinion, those are dangerous ideas. Ideas that promote division or bigotry or sexism. Those are very dangerous ideas because they encourage the person to separate themselves from humanity, to think of themselves as superior and as others inferior, when really we're all part of the same tribe, part of the same species, right? But anyway, I think social media, although it's brought many good things with it, like I said, it's also brought a lot of terrible experiences that affect humans. What I mean by this is it's become easier than ever to fall into the trap of comparison, because you go into these apps like Facebook and Instagram, and I don't know the other social media apps because I don't really use social media, but once in a while I will. And I don't have the Instagram app downloaded on my phone. I delete it and then I re-download it when I'm bored or something, or I want to see something on Instagram when I'm, when I have nothing to do, I'll go on. And even though I've completely detached myself from Instagram and I don't really follow people that I don't know or celebrities or any of that, I will still catch myself comparing myself to others. I'll catch myself looking at things that bring me no benefit and make me feel worse. And I guess maybe my algorithm sucks. And I will say there are some things that I've been able to see online on Instagram that, have given me some food for thought, or have given me ideas on my art or things like that, or some inspiration, which is cool. But there are other things that, just pop up, or the advertising. That's what pisses me off the most. Just like every other thing that you watch is an advertisement. And just being thrown into this advertisement app. I mean, maybe that's why I feel so unhealthy when I use it, but I just okay, that's me, right? I don't really use it, but when I do, I feel crappy, and I feel like I've wasted my time. Um, but I can't imagine those that are addicted to apps like Instagram and Facebook and the other apps that exist. I can't think of them right now, but um, I can't imagine how they feel, how many mental health issues these people that are addicted to these apps have, because it really robs you of your peace and of your time. And I think that's why it messes you up so much, because it robs you of your time. Um, and of course, one can argue that, okay, well, you can use Instagram intentionally and um, intentionally have the algorithm show you things that inspire you. Okay, but how many people become inspired and put that inspiration into action? I don't know the answer to that, and maybe there are many that get inspired on Instagram and then they put that inspiration into action. But I get inspired, but I'm not somebody that can put that inspiration into action. Like, I delete the app and then I'm inspired. I start painting, or I start doing pottery or something. I'm not that kind of person that will immediately do that after I watch a video or a picture or something on the app. So maybe I'm coming at it through a very biased perspective. But anyway, my understanding, and from what I've read, many studies show that Instagram is harmful for your mental health. Instagram, Facebook, all these apps are very harmful. And I think part of the reasons is because, first, it robs you of your time, of your precious time, where you could actually put your creative ideas into action, or just maybe not even put your ideas into action, maybe just ponder the art of thinking and doing nothing. Just sitting, um, looking out your window and just thinking. That's unthinkable today, right? Um, that's a waste of time, right? But is it? What's the difference between just sitting and looking out your window and just thinking and going on Instagram? Because both could be considered a waste of time, or both could be considered a good use of your time. But in my opinion, um, thinking, sitting and just thinking, allows you to process whatever is already in your mind, or any creative downloads, or not even creative, but just downloads in general that could benefit your life and are curated for you. Like, your mind knows you because you are the mind. And so I think it's not a waste of time. Just sitting and thinking is very different than going on social media, because you're being bombarded with a bunch of information to get you to buy stuff. Like, every other app, or every other picture or every other video just shows you something to get you to buy something from this store or that store. Or it also promotes division, or it also promotes your own bias. It's not a very, these apps aren't very open-minded in the sense of showing you different ideas. You have to actively search those ideas out, because your algorithm will just show you what you already believe, what your bias is. And so that's why it can become harmful, and I think that's a waste of time, in my opinion. Whereas thinking, of course, you're going to have your own biases, you're going to have your own perspective on an issue. But I find, and maybe this is my biased perspective, but I find that when I sit and just think, and I think about a certain fixed perspective that I have, I also think about the other side of the coin. And so I start pondering on other things, that other possibilities and things like that. And of course, that can go to an extreme. Thinking too much can become overthinking, and then you can fall into that extreme, and that starts to affect your mental health. So I guess everything in balance. But anyway, that was just, I guess, a whole ramble on. I started off with the Google outage and the AI outage and the social media outage, or not social media outage, but how people have become dependent on social media, and how people have become dependent on these other apps like Google and AI, and how we're losing the very thing that makes the human experience beautiful, which is being able to think for yourself, you know? I think that what's happening right now is, a lot of it has to do with the algorithm. And people are more divided than ever because, of course, the algorithm will show you your bias, your perspective. And if you want to seek out something other than your own bias, you have to try. You have to actually look for it. It won't just show it to you. And I think this country is so divided more than ever because of the algorithm. I was also thinking today about how the country must see, or must think about, what's going on in the raids right now, in the ICE raids and the protests. Like, what does the rest of the country think? What does the other side of the country think? Because they're not here, so they don't really see what's going on. Or maybe they're in a very rural town and they've never gone out of their rural area, and so they're not very familiar with the issue, so they're being fed whatever is their bias, right? Because they don't know. It's not because they are racist or because they are terrible people, but they literally don't know anything outside of their bubble. How many people are like that, you know? And so I was thinking, would my perspective on this situation, if I was living halfway across the country, right, and I was living in a small town as a woman of color, would my perspective be different still? Would I agree with what's happening, or would I disagree with what's happening? Would I support certain candidates, or would I lose? Or what would be my political affiliation, or what would be my mindset like? What kind of ideas would I subscribe to, and what kind of belief systems would I have? I don't know, because I've never been there, but I understand that other people across this country have a very different view of the situation because they are being fed with their own bias through the internet and through television, right? If people watch TV. But, so I guess I'm lucky. Well, the term isn't lucky, but for lack of a better term, I guess I'm fortunate to be so close to what's happening right now, because I know that what's happening right now is an injustice, and we are falling into a very fascist regime. I see it. And people are tense. And a lot of innocent people are suffering. But I understand that other people across this country don't see it that way, because it's not because they're terrible people, but because they've never met someone outside of their own social circles. And so they have no idea what's going on, because they've never even been outside of their town, or maybe not even outside of their town, maybe outside of their state or outside of their own bubble, you know. So it's an interesting time to be alive, and it's an interesting place to have this life and experience this life. And I don't know. I feel like in the last 2 or 3 weeks, my ability to express myself has really, it's just really been terrible. I find myself stumbling on my words and stuttering and not being able to think about the right words. And I think it's because I lost practice when I was in Japan, because I was just filming whatever I found interesting that day. So I just film and then upload a video, and I didn't have to talk in front of a camera, because it was just became difficult to find some time and space where I could do that. But I also feel like a lot of it I can't really express in words, because it just makes sense in my mind, or I'm able to intuitively understand what I need to understand right now, you know, and then having to put it into words is hard. So I'm sorry if I'm rambling, and I'm sorry if I'm stumbling and stuttering on my words, but trying my best here. We're living in interesting times for sure, but we can argue that every time in history has been interesting. So I guess I'm living in interesting times right now. Peace and love, guys. Take care of yourselves and keep on living an interesting life. Bye.